It was the kind of motel that seemed to exist outside of time. Faded neon lights buzzed like dying insects over the entrance, casting a flickering red glow across the cracked parking lot. The sign read, "Sunset View Motel," though no one had seen a real sunset from that place in years. It sat off an old highway, far from anything meaningful. Truckers, drifters, and the kind of people who didn't want to be found, they were the usual guests, but none ever stayed long. And no one, absolutely no one, ever checked into room number 13. It wasn't just superstition. The manager, a wiry man named Pete, used to tell guests the room was under renovation. Broken pipes, faulty wiring, whatever excuse he needed. But those who worked there knew the truth. They'd heard the screams. They'd seen the lights flicker when no one was inside. The last time Pete gave someone the key to room 13 was 6 years ago. A traveling salesman. He'd paid in cash, asked for the quietest room they had. He got it, and he was never seen again. On a rainy Tuesday night, a woman named Eliza pulled into the lot, soaked and exhausted. Her GPS had rerouted her through a back road detour, and the nearest town was miles behind. She rang the bell at the front desk. Pete, now gray-haired and tired-eyed, hesitated. "Only one room left," he muttered. "Room 12. But Eliza shook her head. "That one looks like it shares a wall with the ice machine. I need sleep." Her finger pointed to the room tucked furthest back. A door barely visible under the sagging roof. Room 13. Pete's face turned pale. "That room's not available." "Come on," she insisted. "I'll take it as is. Don't need fancy. Just quiet." Against his better judgment, Pete slid her the key, an old brass one on a black plastic tag, worn nearly smooth. The room smelled of dust and something else. Metallic. The walls were covered in faded floral wallpaper, peeling at the corners. The bed creaked under her weight. The lamp beside it flickered when she turned it on. But what disturbed her most was the mirror. An antique mounted above the dresser. Tall, wide, and impossibly dark. Her reflection seemed slower, slightly delayed, like watching herself from another time. She unpacked, changed into dry clothes, and lay down. Rain tapped against the window like bony fingers, and just as her eyes began to close, a whisper, right beside her ear. She bolted upright. No one was there, just the lamp, flickering faster now, and the mirror, still, silent, watching. She turned, her face away, willing herself to sleep, but sleep never came. At exactly 2:13 a.m., she woke up to complete silence. No rain, no wind. Even the flickering lamp had gone dead. And in the mirror, she wasn't alone. There was a figure, tall, shadowy, with glowing eyes like dying embers, standing right behind her. She spun around. Nothing. But when she looked back into the mirror, the figure hadn't moved, still standing there, breathing, watching. The room's temperature plummeted. Her breath turned to fog. The air thickened with dread. Then, the mirror cracked. A thin fracture from corner to corner, and the reflection smiled. It wasn't her smile. It was wide, wrong, like something pretending to be her. She tried to run, but her legs wouldn't move, like the air had turned to concrete. A voice filled the room, low, distorted, and coming from everywhere. You opened the door. Now you belong. The mirror burst. Darkness swallowed the room. The next morning, Pete knocked on the door. No answer. He opened it. Room empty. No bags, no trace. The mirror was gone. Only the brass key remained, on the bed. Pete locked the door, painted over the number. Now, if you visit the Sunset View Motel, you'll find no room 13. Just a gap between 12 and 14. But some nights, guests in those neighboring rooms report whispers, and if you stand at just the right angle in front of room 12's wall, you might see your own reflection, smiling back, but it won't. Be you. The house was silent. Too silent. The kind of silence that presses down on your chest, suffocating the air, thick with a sense of something wrong. The walls, old and weathered, seemed to breathe with the house itself, creaking in the dead of night. It was a house that had stood for decades, but recently it had become a place of whispers, of secrets best left untold. And yet, something new had begun there. A presence. Something otherworldly. It all started when the vent was uncovered. As the young couple moved in, the air was thick with the scent of dust and abandonment. They didn't notice the vent at first. It was small, inconspicuous, tucked, away behind a faded painting in the living room. It was only after they settled in, when they began hearing strange sounds at night, that they discovered it. Soft whispers, like a far-off murmur, threading through the air. But no one was there, just the house. At first, they thought it was the wind, maybe pipes, some other natural explanation. But it kept coming, night after night, closer, louder, until it was undeniable. Scene transition. The couple stares at the vent. The woman, pale and trembling, stared at the vent. She could feel the hairs on the back of her neck standing up. Something was coming through it. Voices, distinct, human, but not from anyone in the house. It was as if something, or someone, was trapped in the walls. Desperate, reaching out, the man, trying to brush off the fear, insisted it was just old plumbing or perhaps the house settling. Yet, every night the voices grew stronger, clearer. Late one night, the woman, unable to bear the anxiety any longer, decided to investigate. She crawled toward the vent, her flashlight flickering. The whispers grew louder as she got closer. Words now. Help. Please. A cold chill swept through her. She pressed her ear to the metal grate. The voice seemed frantic, disjointed, pleading for help. She gasped, her breath caught in her throat. The voice was familiar. It sounded like her own. The man, startled by her silence, rushed into the room. "What's wrong?" She turned to him, her face drained of color. It's me. It's my voice." Panic began to rise. How could it be? She hadn't spoken. The voice wasn't her own, but it was. They spent hours trying to figure it out, going over every possible explanation. None that made any sense. But when the sun finally began to rise, something changed. The vent no longer whispered. Instead, it hummed. A deep, rhythmic hum. Almost like a chant. The woman could feel something inside the walls now. A presence, alive with malice. It was no longer the soft whispers, but a steady, growing force. Then, from the vent, came a sharp scream. The woman recoiled, stumbling back, her heart racing in her chest. The voice, twisted and distorted, screamed for help again. Only this time, it was different. It wasn't pleading. It was angry, furious. The walls groaned as if in pain. And then the voice whispered, this time directly into her ear, "Get out! Get out before it's too late!" The couple fled the house that night, their belongings abandoned. But as they drove away, they could still hear it. The voice, clear and maddening, now echoing in their heads. It wasn't just the vent anymore. It was everywhere. No one has ever lived in that house again. And those who dared to go near it, well, they say they hear the same voices through the vent, whispering, screaming, and sometimes they say it's their own voice calling out. It was a quiet evening in a small town, the kind where the wind seems to whisper secrets between the trees, the kind where every knock on the door feels like it belongs to a friendly neighbor or an expected delivery. But for Anna, It was a knock. That would turn her life upside down. She was home alone that night, tucked under a blanket on the couch with nothing but the sound of the old grandfather clock ticking in the corner and the dim flicker of a candle lighting up the room. Outside, the rain tapped against the windows, a rhythm that seemed almost soothing. Then, just as the storm outside intensified, a loud knock echoed through the house. Knock, knock, knock. It wasn't just any knock. The rhythm felt off, unsettling, as if whoever was on the other side knew her in ways they shouldn't. Her heart raced. She rose from the couch almost involuntarily, as if drawn to the door by some force she couldn't explain. She glanced through the peephole. No one was there, just the heavy darkness of the night. Her breath hitched. The knock came again, louder this time. Desperate. Knock, knock, knock. Her pulse quickened. She knew no one was supposed to visit at this hour. No one except for her husband. But he wasn't due back for hours. And yet, the knock persisted. Anna stood frozen. She could feel the hairs on the back of her neck standing up. The shadows of the room seemed to stretch unnaturally, the air growing thick with an oppressive silence that swallowed every sound. The knock came again, and this time, there was something else. A whisper, faint but clear, barely audible over the rain. "Anna." She stumbled backward, the blood draining from her face. She recognized the voice. It was her husband's voice, but how? How could it be? He was supposed to be miles away. Her mind raced. Was this some cruel joke? Was it really him, or was someone mimicking his voice? She didn't know what to believe anymore. Her instincts screamed at her to stay away from the door, to never open it. Yet there was that part of her, that morbid curiosity, urging her to find out who, or what, was behind the knock. The seconds dragged on like hours. The knock continued, relentless, its rhythm growing more frantic, almost pleading. Knock, knock, knock. Then, just as quickly as it began, silence. The knock stopped. The whispering ceased. Anna stood there, heart pounding in her chest, trembling with fear. The silence stretched on, unbearable. She waited, the minutes feeling like an eternity. But nothing happened. There was no movement, no more knocks, just the stillness of the storm outside. Anna took a cautious step forward, her fingers trembling as she reached for the doorknob. She paused. Something felt wrong. She had to know who it was. Her hand hovered over the knob, but as she twisted, it ever so slightly, a cold gust of wind slammed the door back into her face. She stumbled backward, falling to the floor. The door creaked open slightly, but the only thing visible was the darkness beyond. Then, with a sharp intake of breath, Anna's eyes locked on something that sent ice coursing through her veins. On the ground, outside the door, beneath the faint light of the flickering porch bulb, lay a single piece of paper. With trembling hands, she reached for it. The message was simple, chilling, and written in her husband's handwriting. "Do not answer the knock." Anna's blood ran cold. It was him. But how? How could he have known? And if he was out there, then who had been knocking at her door?